Good morning. This is Jack from Charting Markets, and this is the pre-market pre-market webinar for the morning of Friday, the 13th of June. My disclaimer: I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right? Okay. Well, the big news overnight was that Israel did a major strike on Iran. Obviously, the talks with President Trump hadn't been going that well, and Israel obviously is facing a potential existential threat if Iran gets nuclear weapons. So the indices dropped sharply, although they've recovered a fair amount since. Let's have a look and see what we're looking at. Okay, now the first thing to note was on ES, and I have mentioned that we've got these possible overall double tops or head and shoulders forming. And we did have a move down, and remember, this is just on the futures charts, not on the RTH charts, but we did see a move down to a potential head and shoulder neckline. And if we were doing a right shoulder bounce, and this is a head and shoulders, then we could break down and head down towards this bigger support level down in the 5750 area. So I'm watching this with great interest. And actually, I quite like this to deliver because, as I mentioned on the Qs and Dire 15-minute charts, I'd quite like to see the rising support from the April low tested. And it hasn't been tested yet. So we'll see how that goes. But we've got this on ES, potential head and shoulders forming. And again, very nice. These are flat necklines. So these were, a nice move down to prior support. These are nice, high quality possible head and shoulders. Doesn't mean they're going to play out, but, the war... the strikes are likely to take a few days. There will be retaliations. There will be reactions in the flight to safety stocks, and there may well be more downside. And this gives structure to that potential downside. RTY, we didn't get a potential head and shoulder neckline here, really. But we still got potential overall topping action on YM. It wasn't a flat neckline. Perfectly horizontal, but we got a decent potential head and shoulder there, and I am wondering whether these might actually deliver and play out. DAX went lower, buy signal failed, buy signal on ESTX failed as well. These may be overall bull flags forming, and I've not lost my overall bullish bias on what we are looking at here, but nonetheless, this looks pretty interesting, and this could give me what I've been saying I haven't got yet on the Qs and Dire charts. Looking at the, we would have had, if we'd made a retest of the highs on SPX yesterday, some daily negative divergence again. We didn't, and I wasn't really looking for it anyway. So on the hourly chart, no current divergence. On the 15-minute chart, no current divergence. But obviously, we'd already broken this rising support slightly. And what I'm watching for is the potential for Qs to head down to this trend line here, and to Dire to head down to this trend line here. On Dire, I've got this currently at about the 423.5 area. On Qs, I've got this currently in about the 519 area, and I would love to see those hit because then we could have another leg up, if we're going to have another leg up, and we would see what would happen then. But that could give us some really decent looking patterns setting up. In terms of support here, what I'm watching here on the SPX chart is the daily middle band at 59.41, which I would expect to be holding. And Qs, I've been looking at the daily middle band support as well. I've got that at 523.17, and I've got on so what would we be looking for there? That potentially, if we do actually see these, some of these play out, we could actually go for full tests of the daily middle bands again. And as I said before, obviously it's quite important that they would hold. On Dire, we've got the daily middle band at 424.71. We'll see. Those are obviously moving targets, so depending on how long it took, if we were looking at a week's consolidation, for instance, then we might well find that we could actually get down to those trend lines, which are, again, moving targets, without actually breaking the daily middle band. We shall see. All right, let's have a look at IWM. And IWM On the daily chart, no current divergence, and we're pretty close to this rising support, which I wouldn't be that upset to see break, as long as we don't get, as long as we stay above the right shoulder low, which I've got in the 199.65 area. Looking at the 60-minute chart, we've got an RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and I'm expecting that probably to make target at the open or shortly afterwards. On the 15-minute chart, not really an awful lot to say. The main topping patterns we've got here are actually just on the just on the futures charts. Okay, DX went a little lower. We've got some support here. Let's have a quick look at that. Because we are testing. We've got the overall bull flag set up here, but I am wondering if that might fail. I have to say, it does seem a bit of a long shot for it's SPX is pretty close to the highs, Qs are pretty close to the highs, US dollar is not close to the highs, not even remotely. So here we've gone down and retested the lows. This could be the second low of a double bottom, and I'm watching that with great interest. In terms of the flag, we're testing support on it. So if we are going to go up and make a retest to the high, this would be the second low of a double bottom, and we would be heading directly up from here. So watching that with great interest at this point. All right, looking at ZB. ZB, there's two reads here. I was talking about it on the charts yesterday night. There's two obvious reads here having gone higher. Either we are forming a larger bear flag, in which case we haven't reached an obvious trend line, although we don't necessarily need to. I do have an obvious trend line, and this would be channel resistance, which is currently up here in about the 115.10 area, I think. So I'm wondering about that, but there is an alternate read where we've broken up from a not very pretty inverted head and shoulders with a target in the 118.24 area. I'd be leaning towards the bear flag option, but it depends how rough things get in the Middle East. If it gets really rough, then we can expect CL would really spike up, and we would probably see bonds spike up pretty hard too. All right, looking at CL, we made it up. I was talking a couple of days ago about this pattern on the oil chart. And hang on. And I'd left in this channel here because, as I said, it's a perfect channel. So, I always leave those on because they might deliver. And I think it just did deliver. I don't have the, obviously this isn't going to give me the, where this made it up to until we see the reading tonight. So I'll have this over the weekend. But I was talking about resistance up here just over 77. And where did we go to? About 77.5. So watching to see whether that breaks the trend line, but I think it will break the trend line slightly. What does that mean? Well, on the bigger picture, that's a potential breakup. So this is a falling channel, and this breakup could potentially start taking us back up into the 92.48 area. Do we have an overall double bottom here? Not really, no. But what we could do is head up to 92.48 and then start forming the right shoulder of an inverted head and shoulders. So we do have a very bullish pattern here. I'm very skeptical about this delivering what would be the eventual target, which would be pretty close to a retest of 126.42. I'm extremely skeptical about that making target, but we will see. But we have broken up over this declining resistance, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes from here. I'm watching with great interest the 200 DMA, which is at 79.39. All right, let's have a look at HO, which broke up, RBOB, which broke up. We're no longer looking at the bear flags that we've been watching for weeks on any of these. NG doesn't break up when there's trouble in the Middle East, and it didn't break up. We're holding below the monthly pivot here. I'm really expecting to see a retest of the low here at 3.3 in the not too distant future. GC has gone higher, and I'm looking for a retest of the all-time high. SI, this looks like a bullish consolidation. I'm expecting at least a retest of this high, and ideally heading up to about 38.5. On Palladium, we've got this rising support's been broken slightly, but looks like a bullish consolidation. And Platinum, we've actually made target on a 6-minute sell signal here. We went higher before it went down, but props because the last two failed. Have we actually gone down significantly? No, and I'm not seeing an awful lot to suggest that we're about to. HG made it down to the support trend line that I've been looking at and broke it slightly. I think we might be returning back to the base of the rising megaphone, which I've got in the 4.46 area. We do have a 60-minute buy signal fixed, but obviously so far that has delivered absolutely nothing. Okay, what are we looking at on the currencies here? Do we have much of a reversal? We obviously have a potential large double top here on Euro and a much less large, but not bad looking double top here on GBP. On USD JPY, there's obviously reason to think that we might be breaking up here. USD CAD, no obvious reversal pattern at the moment. We do have a potential nested double top on Australian dollar, and on NZ we've got a big potential double top as well. So I am watching the potential inflection point here. We'll see how that goes. All right, KC. KC, I'm leaning towards this not being an inverted head and shoulders now. I'm leaning towards seeing a retest of the low. When we see this low retest, it could be the second low of a largish double bottom. On sugar, I actually rolled this and coffee yesterday into the new contracts, and this is now a decent looking falling wedge which is breaking up and got a double bottom here. This is a more bullish looking leaning setup, and if we see a sustained break over 17.2, we can see it move back up into about the 17.65 area. Looking at CC, still a flag which is broken down, still leaning towards seeing a retest of this low here, which is in the 85.50 area. On CT, nice looking. This is actually now very much looking like an inverted head and shoulders forming. Hang on, let's just draw that line. And it's a pretty nice one. It wouldn't take an awful lot to go back and retest the bottom and make it a potential double bottom, but this is actually quite a nice inverted head and shoulders at the moment. Waiting to see if that breaks up. Could see a decent move, but obviously this has not been an exciting instrument to watch lately. On lumber, this is a potential bear flag which could be overthrowing. There are other options if it goes higher. ZW, we've broken down. I was talking about this oversized double top here, and it really is oversized. This would be the main target, which would be a reversal back to the previous low. But I am wondering about this breaking down and giving us a potential second low of a double bottom. On corn, possible IHS, possible double bottom forming. On soy, we broke up from a nice bull flag here, and I'm leaning towards this making heading up into a retest of the high, but we're not seeing much sign of that so far. 60-minute sell signal has fixed. On soybean oil, this looks like a bear flag forming. On live cattle, I'm wondering about some retracement here. This is a potential wedge which is overthrowing bearishly. On lean hogs, we've got a 60-minute sell signal fixed, and I'm looking for some retracement, potential little level top here, although it's very small and it would only get us back to about the 106.35 area. All right, great. In that case, let's have a look at just ES, review ES quickly. We've got potential head and shoulders patterns forming on the ES and NQ, and this story with Iran and Israel is likely not finished yet. We have got scope to go lower. If we did see lower, then I'd quite like to see that, because that would get me to where I would like to see the trend lines going. Sorry, the trend lines going on Dire and Qs. So I'd quite like to see that. We shall see. As for oil, this could go significantly higher. Depending on how much disruption there is and what political blowback there is. So watching that with great interest. This could be the start of a breakup, but really the key for oil is the 79.80 area. That's where the 200 DMA is. If we can get over that, then that opens up a move potentially to 92. All right, great. In that case, that's a wrap, guys. Oh, one other thing to show you here, and this is obviously crossing the floor over to the cryptos. But this is one thing I was talking about the other day. I was saying that I love the inverted head and shoulders setup that we've got here, but I did warn that we had a potential head and shoulder neckline here, and if we couldn't get back over the daily middle band, then we might get back, and that could set up a head and shoulders that could take us straight back to the lows, which would be a very bearish scenario here. And this is now fully formed and is trying to break down with a target at a retest of the low This doesn't have to make target, but obviously it's potentially pretty bearish and could be signalling that we might see a corresponding move in equities, not to get back to the lows, obviously, but to see more weakness. We shall see. All right, brilliant. In that case, I think that's a wrap. Everyone have a great weekend, and I will catch you again on Monday.